Hey guys, this is going to be the Rumble guide that I never had, pretty much a collection of all the tips and tricks, both basic and advanced, that I wish I knew sooner as a white belt, all the way up to a black belt. So I'll go over everything that comes with getting these, along with how and when to use them. So this is going to be where you start in. You've got the combat study, rumble station, matchmaking, lower training yard with Howard, and then the upper training area. But for this we'll be focusing on the combat study. Getting into the game, you start as a white belt with the 4 moves: sprint, pillar, disc, and straight. So there's actually a few things I want to put up front that you should be focusing on early game, which are standing straight, hand orientation, where you're facing, recalibrating, and gorilla gripping. Now what I mean by gorilla gripping is holding your calibration buttons too tightly, which makes the pose requirements super inaccurate. This is where a lot of people mess up. Just be gentle with your controllers and keep in mind that you don't need to ball your fists to do moves. Loading into the game for 10 minutes and practicing without results, it's really easy to assume the game isn't tracking you right, something's wrong with the game, the poses are too hard or too strict. I promise you, it's not the game, it's you. You really gotta study the hand placement and just keep practicing. But for the basics, let's get into white belt. Apart from walking, sprinting is gonna be your fastest way of getting around. To sprint, you're gonna have one hand by your waist facing the opposite side and your other hand by your chin facing the other. Then you'll just repeat the alternating poses. Sprinting is an exponential speed, so don't be surprised to start slow since you'll speed up. You also can't change directions abruptly, but you can avoid this by making wider turns. Now for spawning any object, you'll always start with your hands by the waist facing up. Then for pillar, you'll transition to the same pose as sprint, but just once. For disc, have your hands at starting position, and then have one hand forward like a sideways punch, and your second hand almost punching the middle of your forearm with a palm inwards. On to yellow belt. For ball, you get to starting position, one hand in front of you like disc and then the other pulled back closer to your chest with knuckles forward and palm facing the other side. For stomp, you'll put both your hands down at a 35-degree angle. This will ground any ungrounded object and you can do it from any starting position. Later in the video I'll explain the difference between grounded and free objects. For kick, you'll have one hand by your chin almost like pillar and then the other punching down similar to stomp. This will lift any object as well as unground it. Now to green belt. For wall, the starting position goes into lifting both hands with palms still facing up. For uppercut, you'll have one hand close to your chin but a bit lower and then the other uppercutting in front of you. For jump, you'll get into spawning position but with only one hand and then the other punching up with the palm facing the other side. Alright, blue belt. For cube, it's starting position and then both hands go up to the top sides of your head with palms towards each other. For dash, have one hand by your waist like jump and the other forward like disc. It's slower than sprint but faster to do. Red belt. This belt you get the move hold right, which is the same one as the dude on the Steam page. You'll have one hand with palm forward and the other horizontal below it. To let go, you can either perform it again or throw it. You also don't need both hands to throw. In addition, you also get parry. For this, have both hands in front with the palms out. Parry will remove all momentum and keep it in the air if it was parried during. It'll also unground any object. The timing is relatively tight, so be sure to practice with Howard. Now the black belt. Black belt comes with a move called Explode, which gives a structure a circular aura. When destroyed, anything in its radius will be knocked back regardless of if it made contact. If it does make contact with the player, it does extra knockback. It will also unground anything that was in its radius. To perform, just punch your hands together near a structure. The other move, Flick, will let you alter the orientation of a structure. To perform, keep both hands to one side with the palms facing the other direction. Unlike Hold Right, you cannot perform it again to let go. You have to either use Stomp or break it against something else. Alright, let's understand grounded and free objects. Think of each structure on a scale with a point representing how much power it has. Wall has 3, cube has 2, pillar and ball have 1, and disc has 0. Grounding and speed serve as extra points. Now disc has a base damage of 0, however since it is spawned moving, it then has an extra 1 damage point. Hitting someone with a grounded and moving disc would do 2 damage points. You can tell if an object is grounded if it has a dark fade at the bottom where it meets the ground. If it doesn't, then it's free. Alright, let's try these in game real quick. We'll have a couple of labels for collisions. Any collision with only one structure breaking we'll call destroyed, and then I'll note which structure breaks. Any collision where both structures break we'll call a clash. Now here I'll make 2 pillars. Each one has a base power point of 1. Since they're grounded, it has an extra point which now brings it to 2 points. Here if I spawn a disc at the pillar, it'll spawn moving, so naturally it'll have 1 point. Doing the simple math, when they collide, the disc will break and the pillar will not, since the pillar has more points than the disc. If I spawn a disc and ground it, it'll have 1 point still, since it's grounded, but not moving. However, when I punch it, it'll have 2 points, which will be enough to break the pillar, although the disc will break too. This is going to be a clash. Now if I spawn a ball, it has a base power of 1. If I punch it, it brings it up to 2 points. So now we know as a ground rule, a moving free ball will always clash with a grounded pillar. Things like this are important to learn early to know how to quickly deal with enemy cover. Here when I spawn a ball and ground it, it has 2 points still. When I punch it, it'll have 3 points. Since this pillar only has 2 points, the ball will continue its trajectory after destroying the pillar. You can then apply these rules in-game and you can quickly calculate how to destroy anything using an object. Now theoretically you want to be using combinations that result in a collision where your opponent's structure breaks and yours continues its trajectory, or to use a combination where you create a clash. You do not want to be in a situation where your opponent can destroy your structures and have theirs continued trajectory, so you should try to utilize cover often. Alright, besides the basic moves, let's go over conventional and special combos. For conventional combos, we'll go over bullet, toss, hop, fastball, and return. Bullet is going to be performed by doing disc, then immediately following with straight. Bullet is extremely fast and hard to dodge or parry, which makes it a great option to chip opponent health. You can start practicing this as soon as you start playing, and you'll see it well into experienced black belt battles, so be sure to always practice this. Toss can be done with any of the 3 structures, pillar, wall, and cube. It utilizes spawning a structure underneath your main structure, then using straight to push it forward. This is good for keeping pressure on your opponent while still keeping your defensive play. Hop can be done with any structure and is going to be straight, then kick. This is similar to toss but is a purely offensive move. The structure you use hop on will move forward quickly and will keep its orientation the same. For this combo, your front hand when you straight will immediately come down into kick. Do not retract your hand to go into kick. It is one fluid motion. Keep in mind that you need to be at least yellow belt to do this combo. For fastball and return, I'll preface it by saying you need to be at least a red belt. Fastball is pretty universal once you get to fighting at the red or black belt level. Earlier I said that you can throw an object with hold right, however you can give your held structure an extra speed boost by throwing it and then going into straight. The way that straight works is that it pushes forward anything in a cone in front of the player, boosting it in whatever angle it was thrown. This means that if I were to throw it at an angle higher and then straight, it would continue its trajectory at that angle but faster. The same goes for throwing at a lower angle. The faster your structure is moving before straight, the faster and farther it will go afterwards. As a precaution, the bigger the object you try to throw, the more risky it is. Pay attention to the orientation so you don't accidentally hit yourself in the back with your own structure. For return, all it'll be is parry into straight or stomp into straight. The main difference is that the parry will stop the structure in front of you, which makes it faster for hitting it back. Stomp is a bit slower, however is a great offensive move for hitting back structures since, unlike parry, stomp to straight will return it moving and grounded, which gives it that 1 extra damage point. Keep in mind that while you can do parry straight on anything, stomp straight can only be done on structures coming at you that are free, like a disc for example. Now for special combos. Let's go over bomb, drop, smokescreen, and drunk throwing, which has 2 variations. Special combos are a separate category since they're very situational and can't be done as often as conventional combos. Bomb is going to be done with either a ball or a disc, modified with explode, then into straight. However, grounding before straight is optional. Bomb has 2 purposes. The first is to mainly unground objects. If your opponent tries to straight a free object, most of the time it'll just fall over, or if it is a ball or a disc, it'll at least slow it down. The second purpose is to blind an opponent, since explode will have more visual effects that cloud up your screen when it breaks. This combo can only be done by black belts because of explode. You can also pair disc and explode with a straight for an extremely fast bomb. Drop is an extremely underrated move and if practiced enough can end games in seconds. Holding a structure using hold right, you can jump and throw it at your opponent without using straight. The reason drop is so overpowered is because if a large structure, let's say a wall, comes flying towards you from above, parry will not work on it since it is above the move's range of detection or its cone. You cannot jump over it either since it's already coming at you from above. Your only options are to sprint or dash away, but by the point you realize that you've already been hit. If you want a hone drop, I'd recommend practicing throwing accuracy while in the air since the move is useless if you can't get a hit in. The combo can only be done by red or black belts. The smokescreen can be done by spawning either a pillar or wall then immediately performing parry. Now as you can guess, smokescreen creates a large cloud of dust in front of you so your opponent loses sight of you for just a moment. The reason this works is because the structure will break if you try to do a move on it before it is fully spawned. Thankfully parry doesn't take that long so we can just squeeze that in. Using wall will always create a bigger dust cloud than pillar, but pillar is faster to spawn. Now the time frame for performing parry on the structure starts from when it comes out of the ground to just before it is fully out of the ground. Ideally you want to parry just before it is fully out to create as big a cloud as you can. Utilize this dust cloud to get into another one of your opponent's blind spots, or to smack your opponent with something like a disc. For drunk throwing, we use this as a way of throwing structures at an opponent in an untraditional way without using hold right. For the first variation, we'll use a right side up wall, pillar, or cube. Close to the structure, start with an uppercut, quickly pull back into kick, then straight. Alternatively, you can swap the last two and do straight and then kick. This catches a lot of people off guard and is a good way to heavy pressure your opponent. You can do this combo as early as a green belt. For the second variation, you'll need a fallen wall, pillar, or just a cube. You'll start with kick, then quickly do uppercut into straight. I should note that for both variations, if you do it too close to your opponent, it will go right over their head without them having to duck. So practice the right distance to this combo. With Howard, of course. Now to go over some strategies while playing. The first one you're probably not going to realize at first, but relax when you play. It's really easy to become overwhelmed in a match, and before you know it, you start to mess up poses. Just breathe and don't overstress yourself. Second is consistency. It's not really a strategy, but when you play, you need to be able to pull off moves like it's second nature. Get to the point where you don't have to think about where to move your hands. This will pull you to the 80th percentile of players, and if you don't know what that means, it means you'll be pretty good compared to other players. Third is what we'll call heavy hitting. Naturally, you want to be doing as much damage to your opponent as you can in addition to trying to knock them off the edge. The issue is for a lot of players is that they don't know when to use heavy hitting, so they just use it all the time. Don't get me wrong, it's a fine strategy, but you'll tire yourself out way quicker. Just time when you have a good opportunity to get that hit in. I promise you that the trade-off of just waiting a few seconds for the right moment instead of spam throwing big stuff and getting tired is well worth it. Fourth, let's go over weak points. This is tied into number 3 as well, but the reason I put it into its own category is because we'll exclude using big objects. Say your opponent has a wall in front of them. Now you can waste your time throwing weak stuff like a disc or ball or a pillar at the wall, but it's not going to do anything. Instead, run to a side where they've left themselves open, then start throwing all those caveman rocks at them. Alternatively, you can use a grounded structure like a disc or a ball and wait for them to kick their wall, and then straight your grounded disc or ball under that open space. This happens a lot more than you think. Another alternative is to use drop on them. There's so many ways to get around that wall, just get creative and look for every weak point. Fifth, let's go over head and body movement. Seeing stuff coming towards you, it's easy to just use the joystick to move out of the way or sprint. However, if you know it's a structure that will just graze you, move your head out of the way and then the rest of your body will follow. You can pair this with your normal walking and sprinting and you can dodge even faster. As an extra note, you can use uppercut to push incoming discs and balls over your head if you're close enough. For number 6, jumping. Although jumping is useful for dodging incoming structures and for drop, realistically those are the only times you should be using jump. The only other time is to escape an area that has too many crowded structures. If you jump too much, your opponent can put together where you'll land and the timing of it. This can leave you open to getting hit with anything. Just be careful to not overuse jump. Last, number 7, distractions. Believe it or not, sometimes missing a throw is a good thing. So much so that you can use this to your advantage. Typically this works for lower belt players, but some black belts still fall for it. Just start purposely throwing structures high and pretty far away from the opponent, but still in their direction. We're naturally attracted to things moving above us, or in this case, an outrageously inaccurate throw. In the split second that they look away, you can hit them with a quick disc or another structure. Although the damage is small, it can build up just as fast as hitting someone with multiple heavy ones over time. Now we've gone over all the moves, strats, and combos, but we still don't know how to get the actual moves. Well, you'll need to get to fighting other people to gain battle points, which serve as experience points to help you advance to higher belts. Each match that you win, you get 5 battle points. Each loss is 2. A disconnect from either player or an error that causes the match to end without a victor or a loser gives 1 battle point. Starting out as a white belt or a pebble, you have 0 battle points. You'll need to earn 12 to advance. Anything from 12 to 29 battle points is a yellow belt. At yellow belt or a cobble, you'll need to earn 18 more. Anything from 30 to 53 is a green belt. Then at green belt or a boulder, you'll need 24 more. Anything from 54 to 95 is a blue belt. At blue belt or a tor, you'll need 42 more. Anything from 96 to 155 is a red belt. At red belt or a monolith, you'll need 60 more. Anything from 156 battle points and over is a black belt or a mountain. To see how many battle points you have, you'll go over to the global point scoreboard next to matchmaking. Yours will always be separate at the bottom. To get from white to black, at the very least it'll take you 3 hours. At the longest it'll take 6 to 8, which is about average. And I don't actually know how to end this video, so go beat up some other rumblers. Thanks for watching. Also, there's a list of forbidden moves in the Rumble community that we don't talk about because they work too well, but we'll talk about that another time.